Well, preseason hockey got game one already done, but who kind of stood out in that game? Who is looking to get on the bus for the Carolina Hurricanes, and what are some early takeaways from Canes training camp? Well, luckily for this episode, we get to hear from Mike Maniscalco and get all of his thoughts on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin, the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Searchcast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. But you're not here to listen to me talk. You come to hear enough to hear me go on for 30 minutes at a time. You're here for my special guest, of course, friend of the pod, been on here enough, and it's always good to have him on. We got Carolina Hurricanes play-by-play man, Mike Maniscalco. Mike, how are you doing today?
No, I'm doing well, Zach. We actually had a hockey game, albeit preseason, to look at. So means we're closer to the real thing. So ready to go.
No, most definitely. And before we jump into all that said stuff on today's show, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And yeah, Mike, it was definitely an interesting game. I think it's chaotic hockey in its finest for the first night back. I mean, you're talking coaches' challenges in a preseason game, got misconducts being passed out like Halloween candy. Just anything that could happen pretty much happened. Like, what was your thoughts on just that, whatever that was overall for game one at kickoff preseason for the Canes?
That's exactly what I expect the first game of the preseason of the NHL to look like. I mean, that's it. I know that everybody, we are in a day and age of we need to micro-analyze every shift and every game. It's one of 6 preseason games. There were, for both sides, if you counted up, maybe 9 regular NHL players were on that ice, and I think I might be taking the over with that number. Tampa sent in AHL with some PTO guys. The Canes have guys on a PTO. They did have some regulars playing. You want to see what Logan Stankoven is going to do in the middle. You want to see Jackson Blake take a step in his second year, continue to move forward. Alexander Nikishin, getting him more used to just playing the American game or the North American game where, he'll have to handle calls and things like that, show that he's got an understanding. But, overall, it was one of those things where, if you're Taylor Hall, you're out there on the ice going, I'm going up against guys who don't know where they're supposed to be. And it makes my job that much harder. Anytime you talk to an established vet about playing in a preseason game like that, the toughest thing is you're going up against a bunch of guys who want to make an impact, who want to catch the eye of management or another team out there somewhere. So, they're trying to be a hockey hero, and that means they're not where they're supposed to be when you're going against a team of full NHL caliber players. That's the one thing. Anytime you talk to a player who gets called up in the middle of a season and you ask them, the biggest difference is everybody knows where they're supposed to be in the NHL. So look, it's a 2-1 hockey game. Are we not going to plan the parade? Should we say that the season's over, that Tampa won? No, You don't do anything like that. This is where, in the older I get, and I'm getting older, I don't look at the results of preseason. You look at the performances of the players. And look, Canes had a lot of good chances in that game. Jonas Johansson made 5 incredible saves. I mean, he made a save where I'm still trying to think how he got across on Stankoven and made the save to keep it a 1-goal game. There's a challenge. John Cooper, what are we doing?
Come on, man.
John Cooper and the Lightning want to win the game. All those things that go with it. But on the other end of the rink, I was really encouraged with watching Caden Primo in the net. But again, it's the first game of the preseason. If you're expecting a Mona Lisa, you have never watched preseason anything. So yeah, it was fine, and I got out of it some of the things that I wanted to see out of the Canes players that were in uniform for that game last night.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, it's like it's preseason. It doesn't really matter. Like, just get like the instant takes of like everything that's going on. It's like it's game one of a preseason. The refs are in preseason mode too, just throwing everyone out of the game. It seemed like it just went completely sideways in the third period. Like I said, coaches challenges, and I do want to ask you about Keenan Prima because I mean he had at least a good few highway robbery saves, especially the one I don't know who he like robbed from. But like going from the right side of the crease to the left side on a one-timer and absolutely just throws the glove up.
Boris Kachuk. It was on Boris Kachuk. Yeah, it was
I thought so. Yeah, just straight up grand larceny on him. Like what did you think of Primo in his first game with the Canes?
That's everything you want to see out of him. I'm not going to give a really long-winded answer on it, Zach.
Yeah,
you know who the 1-2 goalies are. It's Freddie Anderson. It's Pyotr Kochetkov. What you want to see out of Caden Primo, if you have to play him, that he has those saves in him, and he showed it. And that's really a real encouraging sign in a game like that last night or the other night.
No, I totally agree. And that's why the Hurricanes went and traded for him. And the fact it was a 2026 seventh for a guy who won 20 plus games for the Laval Rocket. And I'm not taking anything away from the AHL. The AHL is not an easy league to win in. So for the fact that he had like less than 5 losses total, that's including overtimes for a team like that, and now you get to have him in Chicago. I think Cam Abbott and his staff are like, great, we have an amazing goalie, and then if the Hurricanes, like you said, if they need him, there's going to be no issue there. So I totally agree. I mean, you saw what you needed out of him, and there's a 55 Primo back on the ice, which is what year is it? Honestly, more than anything else.
Little different position from what his dad Keith played, but yeah, I mean, that's a nice tribute. It's a good thing to see.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, out of the funny thing about trying to judge goaltenders in the preseason is it's almost impossible because of what we just talked about. You have to take a look at the lineups that are in front of them. The other night, Alexander Georgiev gets a shutout, right? Well, he had a more NHL team in front of him when Buffalo was playing Columbus. Now, you don't take anything away from it, but for me, it's in these games, do you make the saves that you're supposed to make? And Primo answered that question every time. Not one of the goals that I can look at can I sit there and go, oh, well, maybe he should have had that one. They were through traffic. One's a power play goal. One's a deflection on the mid slot. So he was fine. And look, Spencer Martin in his time with the Canes, he gave me that sense of, you know what, you can win with this guy in the net if you need to go with it. There's not. Is there a drop-off? Sure. It's not Frederik Andersen. It's not Pyotr Kochetkov. But it's not like you're turning to a guy going, we need to score 6 tonight if we have any chance. Caden Primo is a guy who not only has he won at Laval at the AHL level, he's won in NHL games. He knows what it takes to win. So, yeah, they're fine. That performance was fine. And I think if you ask Rod Brindamore, he'll tell you the exact same thing. In fact, he did say you were there last night. He did say the exact same thing.
Yeah, I was the guy that asked him that question. How'd you feel about Primo? So yeah, I mean, he did great. Made some key saves. That's all you can really ask for. Your guy who's break glass in case of emergency, third goalie. So nothing wrong with that. You did mention Logan Stankoven. I do want to get your thoughts on this. I know it's first NHL game experience of him being as a center, not just in training camp. I know, and Rod Brindamore said it's kind of hard to evaluate because there's a plethora of penalties. You can't really assess a guy in his first real test as a center. But I mean, he did win 56.3% of his faceoffs, and for him, he even said it. Still trying to figure out how to play differently as a center instead of a winger. Like, what were your thoughts early on? Just kind of seeing, it's a small sample size, but it's a sample size that it's like maybe it makes sense to see a Logan Stankoven as a possible center.
Well, I mean, this was a position that he played coming up. So it's not like you're taking a guy who has never played center and you're trying to have him play there. That's where he was as a junior. And I think to give him that experience, this isn't one of these things of, oh, we have no other options. This is let's see what we have in this option. And the one thing I can tell you about Logan Stankoven is he'll put in the work. There's no question about that to want to play that position. And I actually think the way that he approaches the game with his hockey IQ, he'll be fine. The only thing that I have with the question mark that you take out of that game last night is, you didn't get enough real 5-on-5 looks at it. There were a lot of power plays and penalty kills for both sides. So it's something where I don't know what the game plan was. In fact, I actually talked with him earlier in the training camp schedule and said, do you know what the idea is for you moving here? Like, are you going to play more games than you normally would have just to try to get used to it? He goes, I don't know. We've talked about it a little bit. We'll see. I wouldn't be shocked to see him play 4 preseason games just because you can get more of a look and give him a look with like maybe a more NHL roster at that spot. Yeah. But at the same time, the game, wow, I'm really going to sound old. The game's changed, Zach. The traditional roles of, where a center plays and what they do and how offenses flow through players. You take a look all around. It's fluid. Everybody's moving. The D jumps into the play more than they ever have at any point in time in the history of the game. So you have to have a guy with a good understanding of what's expected from his position. But really the biggest thing that he would probably need to work on, in my opinion, is face-offs. It's one game, small sample size. Wasn't Tampa's best face-off men that he was going up against. But if you're on the plus side of 50%, all right, that's a good start. So you go from there. Yeah. And he scores a power play goal. I think all in all, it's a good night. But again, I am so hesitant to, label a player after one preseason game or hand out grades or try to predict what we're going to see. But I can tell you this is a player who, if the Canes think that he is their best option at 2C, if it doesn't work out, it's not going to be from lack of effort and lack of hockey IQ. The only concern I would have with that, and he's not, I hate to use the word he's a small player. He's short. He's not small. He is a big man. You've been around him. Yeah. He is. Oh yeah. He's a fire hydrant. He is a thick with 2 C's, as the kids would say. Right? Is that what it comes down to? So
yeah, something like that.
You've seen it. He doesn't get moved off of spots easily, right?
No, not at all.
And he wins battles. So I think it comes down to the system that the Canes do play offensively. Mm-hmm. What are you going to get out of it? But I think you can really accentuate the parts of his game that we didn't see a lot last year, even with Dallas, where this is a guy, you give him speed, you give him open ice. He can create space. He can create really, really tough situations for the defenseman to defend because he can distribute the puck and he goes to areas where you need to score.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then, like you said, he's short, but he's a guy who, like you see, he's built like a brick house essentially, and it's kind of hard to knock him off the puck. There was times, last night where it's like it's him on a 1-on-2 or a 1-on whatever, and he's beating guys on board battles. And I think, it's a small sample size, but give him, a few more preseason games, and who knows, maybe we'll figure it out. And if not, there's other guys on the lineup to play center. It's seeing what does your deck of cards look like? What hand can you play that makes sense for your team? So all that said, we are going to talk about who's trying to get on the bus, because Rod Burnmore said in his pre-camp talk with the team, he's like, hey, who's going to get on the bus? Who's going to find a seat to get ready for the regular season? So stick around and we'll talk about certain guys who are looking to make some noise and hopefully get on that bus here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick and easy and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So, like we said, going into the break real quick, that Rod Burnmore kind of mentioned, there's this 3 different races to go through. You got the preseason, you got the 82 game marathon, and we got the playoffs, and who's trying to get on the bus. And for me, I think it's more of like, the NHL guys are going to make it. Most of the roster seems pretty set, but there's all those bubble guys, or maybe those guys that maybe were under the radar that could surprise a lot of people. For me, I think that it's Charles Alexis Legault is kind of almost put himself into a position for a right-handed shot defenseman that the Hurricanes are kind of thin in that area. Like, what have you seen for him that, he's 6'4", 215, gives that size, but also has a little bit more offensive side to him? Like, what have you seen from Charles Alexis Legault that could be like, maybe this guy could make some noise and maybe push his way onto the roster at some point, if it's not out of camp?
He's 6'4", he's 215, and he's a right-handed shot, Zach. That's what I've seen so far in training camp. Now, I will, he's the player I have to go back to last year, and his time around the team and his time in camp, and then what you see, and then did he apply any of the things that he had learned in camp in that prospect tournament during the course of the year? He held his own in Chicago in the AHL, and we brought that up a little bit earlier. For my money, and this isn't disrespect, there are a lot of really good leagues around the world now. I mean, the Swiss League is good. The Swedish Elite League is still good. KHL is phenomenal. We know that with talent. The AHL, for my money, is the second best league in the world because you are one step away from playing in the NHL when you get to that level. And again, that's not besmirching any of the other leagues, but for me, for Legault, I watched that prospect tournament this year, and you want in those situations your guys to look different than the other team's guys, meaning, he's skating better, he's reading the play better, he jumps up in the play, he passes better, he accepts passes better. All of those little things that you're looking for. Legault, to me, it wasn't that he was a different player. Everything that he did well, he did better this year in the prospect tournament. And I thought that in that game on Monday night against Tampa, he didn't do anything that I looked at and said, he's not ready for the NHL. I just think that he's 20 years old. He's going to need more time. And there's nothing wrong with letting there's the saying, let someone cook. Well, in this case, let somebody bake a little while longer. Don't take it out until it's ready to go. And could he play this year? I wouldn't be shocked to see him in a Canes uniform at some point this year. Is he ready now? Is that what's best for the Carolina Hurricanes? Well, there's a lot of other things, and you've already brought it up, that we will get to. But I look at the way that this defense is set. If everybody's healthy, let him play the big minutes in Chicago and then get ready to get the call up here. But he is the player who I think that you keep an eye on. Another player on the blue line is Dominic Fensore. He's in that same situation that we could talk about with some other players. If Dominic Fensore was 6'1", I don't know if we're having questions about does he go to the AHL. The question is, where does he slot in as a power play player or wherever for an NHL team? So back to your original question for Legault, he might not be on anybody's radar. He should be. And I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity this preseason to continue to play better. He wasn't perfect on Monday night. He had a few things that I'm sure, and they're good teachable moments, but teachable moments that you want to have corrected. But at the same time, he's got the natural ability when it comes to the measurables. He's a good skater. The right-handed shot is, I think, something that's important. Every team is looking for it, and the Canes really do like to have that balance on the blue line. But he's a player who, I don't know if he is going to find himself on the NHL bus this year, but he's definitely going to be at the bus station at some point on the tour. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I know, guys would give a shout out to Matt, some of those guys from Canes prospects. They've been on him for a while, and I've been kind of watching him, like you said, last year and even through the prospect showcase. He's popping off the screen a lot more, and you're like, okay, yeah, he's 6'4", 215, but he uses his size. He's getting a little bit more offensive minded, bite to his game. So it's gonna be fun to watch him play. You mentioned Dominic Fensore, was a captain at BU, played last year, like you said, with Chicago as well. And you gotta give Spyro Anastasios a lot of credit for what he's done as the defense coach in Chicago to get these guys ready. And he prides on his guys being ready for a call-up if they need to be. So, yeah, definitely two guys to keep an eye on. And it's interesting, too, because, if we're talking defense and when you go and talk about forwards, the name that comes up a lot is Bradley Nadeau. And got to give, credit to Ryan Heckel. He's said it a lot. We know the kid can score goals. It's just how's the rest of his game going to play out?
how is he going to be on the PK? How is this two-way game going to be? And I still, there's still some room to grow there. But I think, with Bradley Nadeau or even, Justin Robidas, the Hurricanes are in a good spot with if they need to reach down to the AHL, bring their guys up. There are some players that
again,
could have a chance.
But Zach, we're talking about another player who just turned 20 years old, right?
Right, which is crazy to think.
Yeah. So again, there's no reason to rush and let them figure out. The hardest part of playing in the NHL, we can sit there and say it's scoring goals. It's all the other stuff. It's playing off the puck. And also, by the way, I have learned this week that anything that Matt Soma from Canes Prospects, it's all from his dog. We've learned that. It's on Twitter. You can go check that, or whatever that site is. Great stuff by the dog. I mean, that is the most truthful dog I've ever seen in my life. Really good stuff. There's so many good sites now around this team that's the exciting thing for me. You go there. Ryan Henkel, if Ryan is watching, he knows I call him a yellow journalist, but he's outstanding at his job. And he, he's one of these guys who they're at practice every day. Guys like Ryan, Corey Lavalette, and I'm there every day. Those are the people you're going for sources, the people who scour over the film, like Matt, where he has that time to do that. You can pick up something, like I said, you're looking for something for a prospect that they do exceptional. And for Bradley Nadeau, there are guys in the NHL that wish they could shoot the puck the way he can. It is heavy, it is off the stick in a blink, and he knows where to put the puck. It's accurate. He is not going to have a problem finding the back of the net in the NHL. Now, I'm not predicting him to be Mike Bossy or Jaromir Jagr or Brett Hull. Like, I'm not saying he's going to step in and score 40 or 50, because here's the thing. Guys like that, they're in the league. But for a player like Bradley Nadeau, you're that good in junior. You don't have to play defense because you always have the puck, right? That's the one thing when you talk about young players who are so good and they put up all these points. They have to learn how to defend. They have to learn how to play in their own zone. They have to, and here's the harder part, they have to learn how to play away from the puck, meaning they're not cheating for offense. They're not out of position. They're where they're supposed to be. And once he figures it all out, I mean, he has got a top six forward with his skill set written all over him. So he's the guy who, again, if we're playing this game of, do you think we're going to see him this year? Yeah, I do think we're going to see Bradley Nadeau. We saw him last year, real small sample size. But if he continues to put the work in the job that this organization does, that Peter Harold does, working with these players in the organization, this is for, and in my tenure since I've been around the team, this goes all the way back to 2007. This is the deepest the organization has ever been. Meaning, if you do have to go to your 14th, 15th forward, you've got guys who can play in the NHL. If you need to go to your 9th or 10th defenseman, you've got guys who can give you minutes and can play in the NHL. Now, you don't want to go there, and I don't want to send anything different, but a player like Nadeau, a player like Robidas, you watch them against their age group. That prospect showcase, when they were on the ice, they were the best line. They were getting their opportunities, and they were very good in their own zone. Now it's, can you start to do it at that next level? That's the question that's out there. And look, Nadeau has a bad turnover in that game against Tampa the other night. Now, so you shake it off, you learn from it. I like Felix Unger-Storm back to the wing. I think that's going to be a place where he is not built for, but he's more comfortable. I know he can play the middle. They were trying that out last year, but you put him in a position where he's comfortable. All you want out of these young guys is to get better in the aspects of the game that don't really translate to the stat sheet for us, Zach. And that's where this organization has really come a long, long way in developing players. Because for many years, Bradley Nadeau would have already been in the lineup because the Canes would have needed him. Now you have a chance to let him play, and he's fine with it. He's like, yeah, when I'm ready, I'll be ready. And he's either going to get his way on the team because he's earned the spot, or the spot's there and he goes and he takes it.
Yeah, and that's the great thing to have with that mentality. Like you said, it's like, hey, whenever they're ready for me, I'll be there ready to do. And like you said, shout out to the development guys over at the Hurricanes for doing what they do. And also, how about, with the fact you got Darren York and the amateur staff drafting so late first. Maybe they trade out of and go to the second and third, and they're finding all these gems. Like you said, this is the deepest team to have, and this is a great problem to have. We have so many guys, not enough roster spots. What do we do? Well, we have a plethora of guys to pick from. Who's ready to take that next step? So it's definitely a good thing to have for sure. So,
and I'm glad that you mentioned Darren York. I'm glad that you mentioned Darren York too, and the phenomenal job he has done with the amateur scouting department for the Carolina Hurricanes, and the players that, they get a bunch of darts, but they know exactly where on the board they want to throw them.
Exactly. It's just pinpoint accuracy, and it's like, all right, well, who's the next guy in the hay bale that we're going to find that maybe people didn't have on their radar. So definitely a good thing to have. So all that to be said, what are some early takeaways from camp when it comes to just who is with a certain trio, who's paired with who, and all that stuff? So stick around and we'll talk about some early takeaways in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, so Mike, I want to get your thoughts on a few things. What's some early takeaways from camp? We kind of already mentioned it with Logan Stankoven at the 2C. He is with Andrei Svechnikov and Jackson Blake, and I actually did get to talk to Jackson Blake after their main group morning skate and try to get his thoughts on what it's like playing with him. Talking about Stankoven and Svechnikov, and he mentioned the fact that he's had some time with Svetch. He's had also time with Taylor Hall and Sebastian Aho, but he's really enjoying playing with Logan Stankoven. Like, what for you, from what you've seen for the last few days, and I know it's a small sample size and all that, but what is kind of like your takeaway for early on with Svetch, Stankoven, and Blake kind of being that second line for the Hurricanes behind the line that seems like it's getting a lot of attention of Ehlers, Jarvis, and Aho?
You're putting 3 very skilled players together. You are hoping that Andrei Svechnikov, talking about players trying to continue to take that step forward, that something unlocks in him. And, we've all been waiting for, does he have that, 35, 40 goal season? But the way he's built, he's going to be the locomotive on that line with Stankoven and Blake. And, it's practice. Zach, I would love to tell you that, this looks like the second coming of the Legion of Doom, the Lindros player.
If only.
I'm going down these roads, but it's practice. There's only you just want to see, do they mesh, do they gel? And in practice they do, because you're almost supposed to. If you're an NHL player, right? You're almost supposed to it's almost supposed to look like this. You're supposed to do the job the way that it looks. So again, it's an early return. Now, does that mean that you can't put a Taylor Hall up on that line? Here's a guy who was drafted overall, and you can throw things out there. But for right now, that's the second line on paper, and that's how they are going about it. I would much rather say it's a line. Everybody is looking for the 2C. It's whatever. I like the parts of it. You've got a guy who I think can be a really good playmaker. In fact, 2 of them, when you're looking at it in Stankoven and Blake. Andrei Svechnikov's a pretty good playmaker too. We put the added onus on him with being the goal scorer, but there's a right mix that's right there. You just have to see how it'll work together. And again, it's more than just the offensive side of things. Is this a group that you can start in your own end and trust them to, be that kind of complete line? So again, small sample size. It's one of my favorite things. I think I've said this to you in the past before. You're like, well, what does this guy look like? I'm like, he looks like a defenseman. What do these 3 look like? They look like a line.
Exactly. It's like they're guys.
What that projects to, I would like to see. I need to see that play together in a game than whatever I can ferret out of it for practice. Practice is fine, but that is really, it's a controlled set of circumstances. That it's for the scientist nerds who are out there. It's the control group of the experiment. It's not the wild cards who are here. But I like the mix of it. But again, it's something I think even Rod will tell you, before you can say, oh yeah, I think this is what it's going to be, you really need to see it in real competition.
No, 100%. It's like we're talking about practice. So it's
not a game. Not a game.
practice. But yeah, so I mean, it's just interesting when you kind of look at, because that was one of the big questions, and that it's like, if you don't have Stankov in there, where do you put one of the other wingers farther down the line, because you have so many wingers and stuff like that. But you get Jackson Blake, who's kind of in the top 6 after a great rookie season. He said he feels relieved knowing that he can just focus on hockey for the next 9 seasons and just take it day by day and get better. And great guy to talk to. It was awesome being able to talk to him for a little bit, just kind of get his mindset of going from, I tried to make the team last year, now it's just get better. And that's all you can really ask for out of him. And now looking on the defense, and I know a lot of people have been kind of concerned with the fact that there's been a lack of Jalen Chatfield. We did see Jacob Slavin for the first time on the ice and no contact on Monday, kind of just going through the motions, participating somewhat, but not a lot. And people are wondering, well, why are they out? Is this going to be, maybe a problem come opening night? And from guys I've talked to, it doesn't seem like anyone's really concerned. It's just, they're sore. They went hard in the offseason. Why push 2 of your top 4 defensemen into a preseason game that doesn't really matter? Like, why should people not be so worried about not seeing Slavin and Chatfield in the first few days of camp, and maybe not even see them in some preseason games?
You've already answered it. I mean, you really did. There's no reason to push these guys now. None. Zero. For Jacob Slavin, he is a player who I can honestly tell you, I don't think has to play 1 single second of a preseason game. And I don't think he needs too many practices, and you can drop him in the game and he's going to be good to go. His hand-eye coordination's, for my money, the best amongst any blue liner in the NHL when it comes to the things that he does and how he defends. For Jalen Chatfield, he did play a little bit early in training camp, and now it's just a few things here and there. And the reason why you shouldn't be concerned is because the team's not concerned. If there was a concern, you would be hearing, the Canes are kicking the tires to look for, another defenseman, or, this is something that isn't out there. You haven't heard that. And again, they're around the team. It's not that they're not here, or they're, having to deal with something, and they're all of a sudden you hear somebody's in Switzerland having to deal with something. No, they're all here. They're all around the team, and whatever's nagging them. And the other part about it, folks, this is going to be counterintuitive because we're in the middle of it. But preseason, every passing year, with the way that these athletes take care of themselves, is becoming less and less important than what it used to be. Like, you used to need a month and a half in 10 games in the preseason to get in shape and get ready to play because of just the way things are. Now you need, I think, a week and a half, if that. Some of these guys just play 1 or 2 games to get their hands back, to get their timing with how the timing mechanisms of the game, making changes, things like that. But these guys are elite athletes. And you know what? If somebody's had a procedure in the off season, why rush them back? If the doctors say, 6 weeks, he's fine, but if you can give him 7, will he be better? All right, then give him 7. And you don't have to push. You know what you're getting to in Chatfield and Slavin. And I know that Keandre Miller has, been in and out with the yellow jersey in training camp, but he's been on the ice. You've had a chance to see him and see what he can do. In fact, there was a drill the other day where I was just marveling why I was watching him specifically, and his footwork is unreal. Like, he picks them up and puts them down and gets to where he needs to go. But again, if these guys, if something doesn't feel right, why are you pushing it now? These games mean nothing. Nobody gets a free pass to the Stanley Cup playoffs because you went 4-0 in the preseason or 6-0 in the preseason. You want to be as healthy as you possibly can for opening night. You want your roster to be set. So that's why there should be no concern about this at all. Again, because there's no concern coming from the team. And I know that I work for the team. I get that, Zach. But if there was something to be worried about with these guys, if there was no timeline, if Rod Brindamore would address us after every practice and be like, well, I don't know about the start of the season. When he's saying if we needed him to play tomorrow, he could, that's good enough, I think, for me, for everybody, because that's the way it is. But you don't need him to play tomorrow. You need him to play October 9th. So let these guys get to the spot where they need to be physically, because this season, especially when we get past the Olympic break and you get to that really condensed schedule, you're going to need everybody to be as healthy as they possibly can be. And a player like Jacob Slavin, we know he's going to the Olympics. So Give him time to be ready and be at his best. When you keep score, if you keep score, you want to win the game. But when the games really do count, when they attach points to them at the end of it, that's when you need Jacob Slavin. That's when, if there was any thought that Slavin or Chatfield might not be ready for the regular season, there'd be a concern. But from what I've seen and the way that they've been around the team, there's no concern about it, at least at the time of you and I talking about this right now.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And like I said, for me, it's if the team is saying that, hey, we're just, let them rest up and get ready for game one. Okay, they're getting ready for game one. I'm not worried about them. We know how good they are. And there's that conversation, Jacob Slavin should have some Norrises by now, but that's a whole different time for another 50-minute podcast. Talk about how great Jacob Slavin is because he's just that great. One other, got a couple other guys I want to talk real quick with you before we go is the fact that, we talked about the defense, they want that balance of lefties and righties, but unfortunately right now you got really, I think if the math is correct, you're talking 5 lefties and 2 righties, and they got to figure out who we're going to put on the offside. 4 and 2, sorry, yes. Well, I was thinking of the 7th defenseman of Mike Riley. And stuff,
look at you! All right,
yeah.
You're going way into it all. I'm just talking about the top 6. Yeah,
top 6. Yeah, well, top 6. Yeah, you're going 4 and 2. But if you're looking at your possible 7th, and if it's Mike Riley, he can't play on both sides. But that leads into my question. We know if they have to put Jacob Slavin over there, he's gonna be fine. It's Jacob Slavin. He's the best defensive defenseman in the league. There's no argument. It's just facts. But let's say that there is someone else who might have to go there. Why does it make sense to look at maybe Shane Gostisbehere being that guy to go on the right side? Because he's done it before. And if you have to pair him with the Keishan, which we've seen so far through camp, why does that make sense? If it's not Slavin, why could it be Ghost to be on that right side to play on his offhand and just roll with it?
Because that would be, and again, part of the answer was in your question. He's done it before. But the other part of it is the Shane Gostisbehere, Alexander Nikishin pairing. You can give them sheltered minutes, especially at home, and I think that's why you do it. And I think the top 4 is set. The top 4 is whatever the mix of Sean Walker, Jacob Slavin, Jalen Chatfield, Keandre Miller. That's your top 4. And I know that Alexander Nikishin had an unbelievable hit on Monday night in the game on Dylan Duke. Welcome to Raleigh, both Dylan Duke and Alexander Nikishin with that play. Again, the reason why that makes sense is you let Nikishin play his normal side. He gets to play his natural side. Gostisbehere, he can play his offside, and you're not counting on them to go play 20 minutes a night against the other team's top line. So that's why it's one of the things that makes sense if that's going to be the pairing, that the way you go with it. And plus, you need Gostisbehere. He's going to quarterback your top power play, and it gives Nikishin more room to grow in the league and with the team. So that's why. I mean, could you put Miller and Slavin together? Absolutely, you could. Whoever wants to play their offside could do it. But then you're going to put Nikishin probably with Chatfield, and you'll keep Gostisbehere with Walker, like we saw last year. That's the one good thing too about this, Zach, is the Canes do have those possibilities if they want to.
Yeah.
But I did like what I saw last year, albeit in the playoffs, of Walker playing with Slavin. I thought that was a pairing that looked good. I like every year Jalen Chatfield takes another step up in his game.
Oh, he does.
So we'll see where that goes. But just naturally, it's you want to give especially young players every opportunity to succeed. And for me, for Nikishin, you play him on his natural side and you let him play. And I know that people are gonna, if somebody has a giveaway and they're not named Alexander Nikishin, fans are going to say he should be playing in this role or he should have more minutes. But you want him to play and then get to the point where everything that he does, there's no thinking about it. He's just playing the game and playing the game the way that he can. And that's why partnering him up with an NHL veteran and Shane Gostisbehere, making Shane Gostisbehere, having Gostisbehere play his offside. It's the one thing right now, the way that the team is built, that you'd look at and say, okay, that one, it makes the most sense to start the season that way.
No, I completely agree. It does because, like you said, gives them, you're not having to throw them out there to the wolves of, excess amount of minutes and stuff like that. But there is that flexibility. If you need to go and change things up, there is that chance. And, that leads into the power play of like, yeah, you got Shane Gostisbehere as your power play 1 quarterback. We look at the power play 2 group that we've seen a little bit. It's Miller and Keishan. That's not a bad duo to have as your power play 2 defense, because you don't really see a lot of teams roll with 2 defensemen on your second power play unit. But with Miller and Keishan, hey, that's not bad at all. You'll be happy with that. You still have your forward group of Hall, Stankoven, and Blake. Okay. Then you look at the top power play unit. It's Ehlers, Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov with Ghost. Now you're playing with house money at that point. Now you're looking at 2 stacked power play groups instead of 1. And we'll see how it works out. So, So I think there's a lot of great versatility and flexibility with the Hurricanes. That's what's so great about this team that I still think that people aren't realizing is that there's roles, but there's flexibility within the roles for the Hurricanes because they can just move guys around if they need to make it work.
Yeah. It's the strength of the team, Zach.
Nope, 100%. But Mike, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I know we're kind of ramping into the season, a little bit more into the preseason before we get to the actual marathon run and all that stuff and doing all that. But before we let you go, obviously people can kind of know where to find you, but if they don't know, where can they find you? And, what would you say to fans right now as we're kind of, starting the preseason, as we're just now, I think we are about, when this drops on Wednesday, 15 days away from the start of the season. What would you say to the fans right now?
Get ready. It's going to be, again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I know how disappointing it is when your favorite team doesn't go 82-0 to join all those other great teams that did. But this is a really, now that the sarcasm's out of the way, this is a really good team. And I'm expecting a really good season for the Canes for 82 games. But again, we know what they're going to be measured on, fair or not. It's their success in the postseason. But this is a team that, again, if everything stays the course the way that it should, you're talking about going to a postseason for an 8th consecutive year. That alone, think about it. They've gone 7 straight years, right, Zach? By my math on this one,
yeah,
they're going for an 8th. You've got so many young players on this roster who can continue to develop, but you've got that really good veteran mix. Now it's just all about getting out and playing the regular games, and this team playing the way that they know that they're capable every night, which is they play hard and they have a chance to win every night. Rare is the game where the Canes are really on the wrong side of a lopsided score. They give you a chance every night. They give themselves a chance to win. So it's a really good team. And there are not questions for me per se, like, oh my gosh, if this doesn't happen, what happens here? But there's a few things that need to happen. And, there's some storylines that'll probably, by the time we hit November, after the first 10, 11 games of the season, we'll have everything answered for where the Canes are as a team. But a lot of good young players to keep your eye on. And again, this is, for my money, if they're not a Final Four team, again, I'm going to be really shocked. There's one team, you're the champ until somebody beats you. So I give the respect to the Florida Panthers for that. The team that's right behind them in the East is the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep. No, couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's, we're talking 2 of the last 3 seasons, the Eastern Conference Finals, 3 of the last 7. I mean, hey, and you've won a first round or a qualifier 7 out of 7. That says a lot for the Carolina Hurricanes and, the era of Rod Brind'Amour. And, there's the questions of, does the system work? It's proven that it does when you've gone the distance multiple times. It's just, are you getting the luck? That's kind of where, are you getting the bounces? And that's hockey for you. It's weird. Stuff happens, but either way, it is what it is. But like you said, Mike, I'm ready for the marathon. The summer's been on too long. Thankfully, we have less preseason games next year and all that stuff. But for right now, we're, like I said, 15 days away. It's going to be fun. Get ready for that marathon, everyone. With that being said, this is the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where there is no offseason, bringing you the daily league white stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Follow Locked On NHL on YouTube or listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a one-shirt Zach on X. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, and the podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you do click the link tree in my bio, you can find all of my written content at thehockeyWriters.com. Just did some with Jackson Blake the other day. Going to do some recaps and takeaways from the game from Monday night, and a lot more coming as we get closer to the season. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube for Locked On Hurricanes. We're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the episode as well, especially with Mike Maniscalco on the show. It's always a good time. So make sure to hit that thumbs up button for that. Share with other Keeniacs who become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes with Mike. Enjoy your Wednesday. Get ready for another preseason game as they take on the Florida Panthers in the community game. So make sure if you are going, do so. If not, make sure to watch or listen on the radio because it's always a good time hearing Mike and Trip calling your Carolina Hurricanes. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.